This is the ultimate 22,000 ringgit Dolby Atmos 9.2.4 Sonos setup, and here is what others have to say about it.
Wow, jelas. Dia ni macam clearer lah dia center speaker.
I actually felt my heart beat every time a bullet shot.
It feels like you want to dodge the bullet, dodge this, dodge that.
There's a fullness to the sound with the Arc Ultra that seems to go around my head, if that makes sense.
Definitely, you feel a lot different. You feel like you're really involved in the whole scene.
So in this video, I'll answer what happens if you simply switch from the Sonos Arc to the new Sonos Arc Ultra. How do you achieve this Dolby Atmos 9.2.4 Sonos setup at home? Answers Google's frequently asked question on the Sonos Arc Ultra and the new Sonos Sub Gen 4. And finally, to answer if this Sonos Arc Ultra is really worth it. So the first question is that what is the physical difference between the previous Sonos Arc and the new Sonos Arc Ultra? Well, the Sonos Arc Ultra is 18% smaller by volume than the Arc, but it weighs lesser at 5.9 kgs compared to 6.3 kgs. Now, it also comes with a new back control bar. Now, right in the middle, you have the controls to play or pause your music. You can change tracks by tapping left or right. Then towards the right, you can easily adjust the volume by just swiping right or left at the bar slider over there, just like how some of you might swipe left on your dating apps. Then there's also a dedicated voice services buttons towards the left, and that lets you enable or disable the voice control features. Then at the back of the soundbar, there's the power port and the microphone switch that lets you disable all the mics when needed. Then there's the Ethernet port here too, but now there is a Bluetooth button near the HDMI eARC port. Yes, this has Bluetooth version 5.2 connection compared to the previous Sonos Arc. And here's a size comparison with the Sonos Arc in every angle for you to see. Number 2, besides the Bluetooth, there are other different direct connections via Wi-Fi to connect with the Sonos Arc Ultra. Now you can use Spotify Connect, Apple AirPlay 2, Tidal Connect, Sonos Voice Control and Amazon Alexa. Oh, by the way, as for Google Assistant, there's still no news yet. So for now, there's no Google Assistant or even Chromecast support. And number 3, are there added speakers on the Sonos Arc Ultra? And the answer is yes, of course. The Sonos Arc Ultra has 14 speaker drivers instead of just 11 on the previous Sonos Arc. Meanwhile, the Ultra also has the additional tweeters, and there's a new sound motion woofer for enhanced sound quality and a more immersive experience. So this means that the highs and the bass are better, louder, and the overall sound stage is also wider as well. And this is all tested with the same volume of level 65 and compared side by side, but more on the sound comparison later in this video. Number 4, if you may ask, my current setup is one Sonos Arc, one Sonos Sub, 2 Sonos Era 300. So if I have that setup, what happens if I switch from the Sonos Arc to the Sonos Arc Ultra? What the Dolby Atmos version will be at. So because of the added speakers on the Sonos Arc Ultra, the Dolby Atmos version jumps from version 7.1.4 to 9.1.4, and this is because while the mid-bass drivers have reduced from 8 to 6 speakers, but the ones on the Arc Ultra are beam-forming speakers. Now this means that it projects the sound in front, to the side, and also to the ceiling, and also with the fact that it has 7 tweeters compared to just 3, which produce tweeter waveguides which plays detailed sound around the room. And then there's also the mid-bass woofer on the Arc Ultra and 15 Class D amplifiers powering the whole entire driver, 2 of which is controlled by the sound motion woofer as mentioned earlier, compared to just 11 on the previous Sonos Arc. But this sound motion uses a transducer technology for overall better lower frequency. Number 5, can you do the audio swap feature with this Sonos Ace wireless headphones on this new Sonos Arc Ultra? Yes, you can. Now, in case you're not familiar with this particular feature, is where audio can be swapped directly between the Sonos Arc Ultra to this Sonos Ace by pressing and holding this particular content key button on the headphones, and boom, your sound transfers instantly, just like teleportation but for audio. Number 6, if my Sonos Arc Ultra is mounted on the wall, not like this, can I switch it to the Sonos Arc Ultra? Can I use the same wall mount? Yes, you can. Number 7, what's new on this Sonos Sub Gen 4? Well, this new Sonos Sub Gen 4 has a matte finish, an improved processor and a chip. And while the speakers has the same amount as the previous Sub Gen 3, the previous Sub Gen 3 is heavier at 13.15 compared to just 11.79 kgs on this new Sub Gen 4. Number 8, can the Sub Gen 4 be added into my existing Sonos Sub? Well, as long as you have the Sonos Sub Gen 3, then you can. But if you have the first or the second generation, unfortunately, you can't. Number 9, should I use TruePlay for the Sonos Arc Ultra and this new Gen 4 Sonos Sub? Yes, that is still very highly recommended as how I demonstrated in my previous video, so make sure to do that. Now, there is an Android version which is called the Quick Tuning, which I have to be honest, doesn't do as good of a job compared to TruePlay, so I would just recommend just borrowing a friend's iPhone or iPad and tune your setup with TruePlay, as that is a more precise method. But speaking of which, let's go into the official store here in Malaysia, the Sonos Concept Store by TC Acoustic, where I've invited some very great friends over there to listen to the difference between the Sonos Arc and the Sonos Arc Ultra, and also for them to listen to the similar Sonos 9.2.4 Dolby Atmos setup that I have here at home as well, together with other features like the audio swap with the Sonos Ace, because real-world reaction speaks louder than my explanation.
Comparing Sonos yang lama dengan yang baru tadi, aku rasa macam dia punya depth tu lebih clearer dekat Ultra ni. Sebab masa kau tengok dekat yang lama punya, rasa macam benda tu tengok dekat TV saja, macam TV standard speakers. But once dia tukar ke Ultra, terus macam lain betul, dia jadi macam lebih, speaker tu lebih wide berbanding yang lama punya.
From a singing perspective, like musical perspective, you feel in the zone. You don't feel like you're sitting at home or you're sitting on a couch right here. So I do feel being with the movie or being with the song.
The Arc Ultra, I felt like I was in the film. The sound was good for the first one, but I felt like I was more in the actual film rather than listening to the film, you know?
My first thoughts between the Arc and the Arc Ultra is that it's not, or it doesn't feel incremental. There's a fullness to the sound with the Arc Ultra that seems to go around my head, if that makes sense. Like, you were playing the Maverick trailer, and when you switch from the Arc to the Arc Ultra, it felt heavier in a good way. The sound felt heavier in a good way.
Walaupun dia punya depth tu lebih besar, tapi dia tak tenggelamkan center sound tu tau. Kebanyakan speakers yang aku pernah test sebelum ni, dia macam standard tau. Kau cuba upkan volume, dia memang kau kena kuatkan suara baru boleh dengar suara. Tapi at the same time, surround sound tinggi juga. So tenggelam, kau tak boleh nak buat apa. So yang ni macam clearer lah, dia punya center speaker dia.
The speech enhancement in particular, I thought was very good, because a lot of the time, I turn off speech enhancement, you know, the kind of stuff that's inbuilt into streaming services, because what I find happens is the background stuff gets muted a little more, and I feel like I'm missing out on the sound design, which directors and filmmakers put a lot of effort into that. With this, I found that the speech enhancement was a lot clearer, so the background noise didn't get muted as much, but the speech was clearer, which I appreciate. I thought that was very, very cool.
You know, having kids around the living room, really hard to watch a movie, even though, you know, like you want to be in your own zone, it's hard. But when you put these on, you actually don't hear them fighting, won't hear them making their own little noise. You can actually be in your own world and do your own thing with these on.
As compared to kalau dulu aku pakai AirPods Max, beza dia sekarang ni sebab kau hanya boleh tengok dekat Apple TV je untuk pakai AirPods Max. Tapi yang ni currently aku rasa macam boleh pakai untuk anything.
This was my first time trying the Sonos Ace. Two things I like. The weight on this is nice because it's light, or it feels lighter on my head and doesn't press down as much on my ears. I have very big ears, very annoying. And then the other thing I like is the transfer audio feature is slick. Very few headphones do that, right? Because there isn't complete integration. So if you're an Apple user, yes, you're familiar with this because when you press a certain button on your Apple TV remote, you can transfer the audio, etc. But you have to be embedded within that ecosystem. So it's nice that someone else is doing it as well, and it's totally seamless. Press and hold down for 3 seconds, and it just went into my ears as opposed to being on the soundbar, which is cool.
So before I got this particular Dolby Atmos 9.2.4, my previous Sonos setup, if you missed my previous video, is version 7.1.4. That setup had the Sonos Arc as the soundbar, one Sonos Sub Gen 3, and two Sonos Era 300 as the rear speakers. So what I did was to swap the Arc with this brand new Sonos Arc Ultra, and I also added a new Sub Gen 4, and with that, it has upgraded the whole entire setup to a massive 9.2.4 Dolby Atmos setup. And this brings us to the final 10th frequently asked question, whether or not is this Sonos Arc Ultra worth it? Well, if you already have the Sonos Arc and if you're satisfied with what it does currently for you, then I would say just keep it with you. Probably invest on a rear speakers to upgrade your Dolby version, either with the Era 100 or even for my case, the Era 300 at the back. But if you don't have the space for rear speakers and just want to step up your current setup, then yes, because there is a significant difference in sound quality, not only for my test, but others who were there listening to as well. Because remember, you're stepping up the number of channels, the bass, especially with the speech enhancement too, as it is about 40% better overall performance, and that is actually quite good. But if you have the previous Sonos Playbar or even the Sonos Beam, if that's the case, then that is a huge yes, because the immersive and the broader sound stage is definitely night and day.